Karen. I'm just back because I'm working on a box that I'm going to be using in my craft room for supplies, and it's going to be one that's sitting out, so I wanted to decorate it a little bit. And I thought I would just come and show you how I take apart trims and laces to make different flowers. I really like making flowers, so it's something fun that I like to do. And I know I have shown you some of these techniques when on my other projects, but I'm making quite a few of them to go on the top of this box. And I thought, well, I'm just going to come and give you guys some ideas of what some of the things I do and how I chop up some of the laces. Now, these trims and laces that you're seeing are all from Craft Supplies for You, and I'll leave the links to the two stores in the description box below, so you can go over and have a look and pick out some that you might like to use in your projects. So this lace here is a pleated trim, really. I mean, laces trim's kind of an interchangeable name, but it has sort of a lacy kind of decorative edge on each side, and then it's pleated throughout the middle. And this trim is really pretty to be used just as is, but another way to use this trim is to actually cut it right down the middle, and you have two pieces of trim then. So if you use it like it is here, and you just cut yourself off a piece of this, you can make a larger flower. And what I have done is I have just taken a thread and done a running stitch just along the edge of this yellow ribbon, right along the edge. And then I'm just going to tie it so that make this into a circle. And you can flatten it down as you're tying it. And so with this type of flower, this one you would have this white part in the center would be the center of your flower, and just cinch it up to where the ends are meeting so that you can have a little bit of overlap. You don't want to have a gap in your flower, so there is good. And I use quilting thread when I make my flowers because I find that it's a heavier thread that works better for making sure that the flowers are well tied together and don't come apart. And I usually do 3 knots when I'm tying off any stitching that I've done. And I try and reuse my thread as well. So if I have longer pieces left and I'm making a smaller little flower, then I reuse them. And I leave a bit of a tail because if you clip too close, you just might clip your knot. So you can see that just by running a stitch along, I just ran it along the edge of the ribbon, the yellow ribbon here, I ended up with this little flower. And you can also add something that has on a flower that's on a wire and just push that through the center. And that can be added to the center of that flower as well. And the edge here, if it's lapped close enough together, and depending on how you're positioning it on your project, you might not need to do anything at all with that edge. Sometimes you can do an extra stitch in there if you're stitching, or if you have your glue gun handy, put the tiniest little dot of glue just on the edge there, and then press those two edges together. And now that will stay together and you won't have any worries there. And there you go. You have yourself a little flower. Now if you take half the ribbon, so I have that here and I have it already stitched, and again I just did a running stitch along the edge of the yellow ribbon. And now I'm just going to tie it up here. I don't do a tacking stitch. I don't know, this is just the way I do it. So if you want to do a tacking stitch at the beginning and then run your running stitch, that's fine too. No right or wrong way really of doing a running stitch. And so that's that one tied, and I would normally do it 3 times. And again, now you have this little flower, which you can see is quite a bit smaller because you used half the amount. But if you've cut it in half like this, you can now make, for the same amount that you made one big one, you could make 2 small ones, because you'll have cut this in half and you'll have 2 lengths the same. So you can make these flowers, and then these are nice. You can add little pieces of acrylic to the middle of them. You can add a little piece of an appliqué flower to the center, and you get a different look depending on what you put in the middle of them. So that's another idea. And another trim that I've shown you before, but it's still one of my favorites, is this pleated trim. And this comes in a mauvey pink color, blue, a green color. She has several colors in the store. And all you do with this one is roll it. And you can either roll it tightly and make a flower that looks like this. I'm not going to glue. Normally I would roll, and every maybe inch put a little dab of glue, and then of course glue at the very end. But your flower comes out looking like this, and if you let it go, it will loosen up. If you want it loose like that, then don't glue as much. If you want it nice and tight, then keep gluing about every inch, like I said. And you can also leave these with a hole in the center if you'd like, or let it loosen up a bit with a hole in the center, and you can add something into the center of these. So I found a pearl, and you could put that little pearl through a piece of wire like that, bend it down at the bottom and give it a twist. And now you have a nice pearl all ready to go, and what you can do is wrap your ribbon and make your ribbon flower right around your pearl, so you have the right size. So wrap it around once and dab a glue, and then keep on wrapping. And again, I would say maybe and just the tiniest dab at about every inch. Roll and glue. That way too, if you do what I just did and you kind of drop it, the whole thing isn't unraveling completely on you. It just unravels back to where your last glue was. And you have this little piece of wire here sticking out to hold on to, so you have a little bit of control of what's going on. And then you can look at the top to see, you know, is it the right size? Is it the size I want? Do I want to quit now, finish off? This is actually the end of what I had. So I often don't cut the piece off. I just keep rolling off of the full length. And when it's the size I want, then I cut it. And that way you get less wastage. I mean, I'm all about using my scraps and using my little bits up for projects, but if I can avoid having too much of that, that's a good idea too. So there you go. There's your little pearl, and the pearl is still moving a bit, but now you have an opportunity to put it exactly where you want. And then once you've done that, you can just add a bit of glue down into the center of here. And then you can also put a backing on it so that it's not going to go anywhere. So a little piece of felt, I just cut there, and it's way too big, but that's okay. We're going to make it circular, so we're just going to go around and cut off the corners. And then I'm going to cut off the rest of this wire, because I no longer need it. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue onto my felt and stick that on the back of my flower. Now it has a little backing on it, and it's ready to go on my project. So that's that little flower that I made from that. These ones I like to make these little organza filler flowers. This organza has a little trim on the edge of it, so it's pretty finished on the edge. And this is from this particular trim. And this is a beautiful Craft Supplies For You trim that she also has in many colors. And it has 2 rows of organza and then this satin ribbon in the middle. And it's about 2 inches wide, so you get a lot. But if you're making flowers, you think, well, it's a lot to make a flower out of, because it's going to have trouble laying, and you know, what can you do with it? So you can do the same thing I did with this yellow one and stitch down the edge of the ribbon here and then gather it up, and you'll get the same idea. You'll get organza in the center, and then the ribbon around the cream ribbon, and then the edging. Or you can do what I've started to do here, and you can cut this in half. This one is easy to cut in half because there's 2 rows of stitching and you cut in between, if that's how the ribbon is made. If it's made like this one and it has a row of stitching that goes straight down the center, as you can see there, you need to cut and leave the stitching intact on one side. So the side that you're going to use for this flower, and then you're going to cut just right beside that stitching, and do it very carefully, and use a nice sharp scissors. These are my sewing scissors. I only use these for materials, so they stay nice and sharp. If you use them on paper, they get dull. And then when you go and try and do a project like this, they don't cut very well. So you go along and you cut that, and you leave this stitching all intact. So now you can see you'll be able to run a running stitch, same as I've done, all the way along here. Gather this, even though it's gathered, you want to gather it up more to be able to make a flower. It's difficult to make a flower if you just leave it like this, but if you just gather it up some more, then you can make a flower out of it. And then you also have this piece of ribbon left, and you have this organza left. So you can use the ribbon for anything, other projects. You can make rolled roses with that. And then you have this piece of organza, which I already have a piece here. And again, this is one of these long dull needles, but I really like gathering things on these needles because you can go back and forth, gathering up your fabric on these needles, and it's so much easier on your hands than using tiny little needles, and you can get so much gathered on these long needles. I know they're called doll needles, and you can get them in the different craft stores in the States quite readily. Here, I got mine on Amazon. I've had it for a long time though, so I can't tell you exactly if they still have them or not, but they're called doll needles, and I have them in a couple of different sizes. I've got a pack of them. So with this type of thing, you just gather up, again, how big you want your flower to be, and cut it off. And the thread has fallen out of the bottom of my needle here, so let me just quickly, and the one thing about these needles that's nice too is they have really big eyes on them, so they're super easy to thread. There's not that, big problem of getting a needle threader out or having trouble threading your needle. So got your thread, and you got both ends, and you're going to hold on to both ends, and you're going to tie this. And again, when you do your tying, you can think about what you're putting in the center, because if you're going to put another row of ribbon or lace or a doily or whatever, you don't have to cinch it up completely. Especially if you like the size of that flower. If you cinch it up completely, you can see you get a totally different look. It has a lot more ruffles in it that you're going to have to spread out, but it's also smaller. So if you just back off a bit and not do it quite as tight, and then just tie it off at that level. And then you can add other things to the middle. So you can even add there. So that's tied off. So now you kind of spread it out the way you want it. And then you, again, this could go in the center of here. And so you would have, instead of, if this flower didn't fit into your design, maybe this one would fit better because it has a little bit more substance to it. And usually with this, the organza, it's really easy to just fold the edges under. So you don't need to add glue, because when you put glue on organza, it really shows. And that's the two edges right there joined together. And really, if I twist this a few times, you'd be hard pressed to find it. So that makes a really nice backing for other flowers. You can see that even that one fits in nicely in the middle of there. Or you can just put a doily in the center, and then, you know, that flower. So it gives you options for building up a flower into something bigger. This little piece here is from a cotton trim, and I like using cotton trims when I'm making flowers. They make really nice flowers, and this is a style of cotton trim that is in the store. This one actually has two sides to it with a crisscross cotton in between, but I bought it for the edging, and I just cut it off. So now I have the edging to work with. And it's really pretty. It has like these little flowers. That's the right side. And then leaves on the top, and then little clusters in between. And all you do with these is you're just running a gathering stitch along the edge of them. And gathering it to the size that you want, and then pulling it up like I did all the others with the thread and tying it into a circle. And especially with a heavier one with a nice pattern on like this, you don't want to cinch it up too tight. So, you know, leaving it with a bigger hole in the middle like I did this one, so that you can really see the edging, is much nicer than cinching it up really tightly when you tie it. And again, when you've left it with the hole in the center, then you can just add something in. And I'll show you some of these. I have some made up on my finished project, and I'm going to show you them. This is the same type of thing. This is a cotton lace or cotton trim. I don't know why it is once you start trying to do a video, why things go missing that you thought you had all set out. So this is the trim here, and it has this ribbon in between. And it makes a really pretty small filler flower for little areas where you need to have something small. So I don't cut the ribbon because I can use the ribbon for something else. I just cut these little threads that thread the pieces together. And so you end up with the side separate from the other. And then I use that. And again, just putting it onto the needle, threading it back and forth on the needle to make your gathering stitch on the bottom. So now I pull the thread through, and I'm going to tie it off. Yes, this is a very small little flower, but this is a perfect size for a little filler flower. Sometimes in between flowers you just need, or a little spot. And because of all the edging, the pretty edging on it, it looks so pretty. And that you can easily add a tiny little pearl to the center. You can add a little bead. You can add a piece of bling. Whatever you'd like to add. But there's, turn it a little bit. There's a little pearl added to the center. Looks very pretty. So those are really nice to add as filler flowers. So look at all of your laces and trims, and particularly look at what the edging looks like. And you have something that has a beautiful crocheted kind of edging on it like that, I can guarantee you that that's going to make a really pretty little filler flower. That again was this one. And this also makes a beautiful trim lace for on projects. So when you're buying this, you have the ability to use it as it is. You can take this ribbon out and you can put a different colored ribbon in, or you can do what I did and cut it in half and make these little filler flowers for your projects. This is another one that's from the store, and it's a very pretty lace. She has several styles that are similar to this that have the stitching down the center like this with a ruffle on either side. And this one again has separate stitching here and here, so you only have to cut when you want to make separate ones. You can cut straight down the middle and your ruffles will stay intact, so it's very easy to use. You can make flowers with that, or you can use this as a trim and put beads or pearls down the center. And this is a very versatile trim, and I have done a couple flowers with it on my box as well. I have a piece here that I have cut, so I've cut it down the center like I said, and the stitches are all intact. And instead of using a thread, a needle and thread, what I do is with these you can just roll it. So do a couple of rolls and put a dab of glue right on your stitch line. Be very careful when you're doing this. I have I don't feel the hot glue anymore, so it's not really a problem for me. But if you're not used to it, you do have to be careful. But also the other thing is don't use a lot of glue. Just the tiniest little dab of hot glue is all you need. And then you roll that into the glue. And you want to keep in line with your stitch line. And you don't need to glue constantly. You can do a couple of rolls and then right on the stitch line, put a little dab of glue and then roll into that glue. And just keep doing that. And what happens with these really nice pleated laces like this that are quite sort of heavily ruffled with those pleats is you end up making a bit of a bud type flower. And especially since most of them have a really pretty edging, and then at the end just make sure you put enough glue to make sure it tacks down. And so the bottom of your flower is going to look like this. So you want it to be even, an even roll all the way around. And then the top is going to look like that, which I think is very, very pretty. Now this piece here is the last part of is always going to stick out, and it's really helpful if it's very even. If it's not even, it's going to be more of a problem. Make sure is down when I place it on my project. But I think that's really pretty. And this has just a light shimmer of pink on the edge of that lace. And it fits really nicely on the project, and I'll show you that one as well once I get to there. And then I was just going to show you one more. This is another trim that's in the store, and this is an organza with a yellow on the edge and a yellow ribboned lace on the bottom of it. And I've used this on my project and made 3 different flowers with it. One I just gathered, like I've been showing you. I gathered the edge and gathered it up and made this into a round flower like that. Another one, I rolled it. So what I did was I cut this part off. I just cut it all along the edge here and saved this, which I'll show you what I use that for. And then I just rolled this part, and I did it exactly the same as I showed you with the previous one. So gluing every once in a while. I rolled it until it was the size that I wanted. And then I used that as the center for the flower. I'll show you that too. And then with this ribbon piece, I did a rolled rose. I'll just show you how that turned out. So this is the yellow part of the ribbon is here, done into a rolled rose. This is a piece of that I made this little one out of. I just made one that was a little bit bigger, and I didn't cinch it in on the bottom. I left it quite open because I knew I wanted it to go around the edge of this one. And so this is that crocheted lace gathered up, a rolled rose made out of the ribbon at the bottom, just this ribbon part. Rolled roses has been the hardest flower for me to learn, but they are a little trickier than a lot of the flowers. And this one I just put a little silk flower in the center. Now I'm just going to clear this stuff off and I am going to show you what I've been working on. This is the box. I'm just going to have to stand up a minute here and make sure that I am in the frame. And this is the box. So I covered a brown box with this beautiful piece of fabric that I had. It's a cotton. It was actually a tea towel. And it has this gorgeous dragonfly on it. I'll tip it up so that you can see her. I think she's so pretty. And so of course I didn't want to cover her, but I wanted to accent her in the garden. So there is the box with all of my little flowers. I've also made these little dragonflies, and I'm going to adjust the light hopefully so that you can see them as I come up here. But this is a little dragonfly. This is the little flower. And I just cut petals off. This would be enough to make one dragonfly. So all you're doing is you're cutting 2 petals off and keeping them together. And that would be one side of your wings. And then there. And I need to say, I'm not saying any of these are my exclusive ideas. I haven't seen this done anywhere else. The flowers are done everywhere. And all I did was I put these together and I hand stitched them and added the 3 little beads. I did 2 beads going this way and 1 going horizontal. So 2 vertically and 1 going horizontal. And the one that's going horizontal, I also added a wire through it so that it makes the antennae. So that's what you'll see. They're also scattered on the box. I did some crocheted butterflies. They're in pink and they have little those little acrylic flowers in them, and they're scattered on the box. Okay, so this flower right here, this is where I rolled up that material and made the center of that flower. Added a bit of an applique behind it, and then the gathered organza with the yellow on the edge is just gathered in behind to make that flower. This one is the gathered yellow lace with the yellow, and then I put a bit of a white lace in the center on that one. This is again one of those yellow ones, and I put one of those little clay flowers in the center. And this is that cream trimmed one that was, and I haven't glued the middle in yet, but I gathered it up. And I just put a rolled rose in the center of that one, and I'll be gluing that there. This is that little rolled rose I just did with the pink trim. But most of these are just gathered laces. And there's the organza one. This is an organza center with a bit of a green lace in behind. There's one of the blue rolled trim roses, and this one has some pearls in the center. You can see that you can make a lot of flowers with just small 6 and 8 inch pieces of lace, and when you start putting them together you get quite an amazing display that's very, very pretty. I hope that you found some of that helpful, and I hope you all have a great day, and bye for now.